County Line, we have some tips on how you can make your Halloween a fun and safe holiday.
And if you're having a Halloween party, you'll surely be serving apple cider. We'll show you what all goes into making the traditional fall drink.
The Westminster College Equestrian team enjoyed the fall weather this past weekend. Later on, we'll show you some highlights from the Intercollegiate Horse Show.
And as always, Justin Egley has the latest sports information in this week's Titantown Sports. We're live.
We're local.
The County Line starts now.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's edition of the County Line. I'm Steve Brink.
And I'm Elizabeth Barry. The Neshannock police are still looking for the man who robbed the Citizen Bank inside of Giant Eagle on Wilmington Road earlier this week. Around 2:30 Tuesday afternoon, a man entered the bank and demanded money from one of the tellers. Witnesses say the man made threatening motions as if to reach for the gun, but did not have a weapon. He then took the money and escaped in a small gold vehicle. Clear security camera pictures of the robber show he's about 5'11", 180 pounds, with white hair and a mustache. Anyone with any information should call the Neshannock Police Department at 724-656-9300.
Kids of all ages will put on their costumes this Monday to go trick-or-treating with their family and friends, but with all the holiday fun, it's easy to forget that you do have to be careful with young children. County Line's Megan Marshall has some safety tips for your Halloween adventures.
Perfect costume and a great big bag to fill with candy, but you're missing one key component for trick-or-treating. New Wilmington Police Chief Carmen Picarillo gave me some tips on how to have a safe Halloween. The first tip he gave me was to see and be seen while wearing a costume.
We ask that the kids, when they put on their costumes and their masks, that they're able to see where they're going. Sometimes these things don't fit very well. They have trouble seeing out of their masks and they'll walk into things or they'll trip over things. We ask that they wear a type of costume or they carry something that is reflective or carry a flashlight, not only so they can see where they're going, but so they can be seen by motorists.
The second Halloween safety tip is to stay in familiar areas. Plan ahead where you'll be trick-or-treating in your neighborhood and always cross streets carefully.
We think it's a great idea that the kids only go and trick-or-treat in areas that they're familiar with, where they know the people or they know the neighbors, where it's well lit, it's an established area, and so you're basically dealing with people who they know they can trust.
The third safety tip is to resist the temptation to eat right away. Always check your treats before digging in.
We strongly encourage parents and other responsible adults to check all the treats that the kids get before they eat it. Now that's hard to do when they're out on the street, but we caution the parents, check this stuff before they allow their children to eat it.
The police chief also had some advice for candy givers and parents.
In an ideal world, we would ask that people who hand out candy only hand out the types of candies that are in a sealed wrapper. That way you can tell whether it's been tampered with.
Keep these safety precautions in mind when trick-or-treating in your neighborhood this week. Have a safe and happy Halloween. In Lawrence County, reporting for the County Line, I'm Megan Marshall.
Now, if you feel like you're a little too old for trick-or-treating, why not try something a little scarier? Our On the Road team decided they were ready for a spooky experience, and that's exactly what they found at Cheesman's Fright Farm.
I'm Luke.
And I'm Stevie.
And we're on the road.
I don't stand a chance.
This week on the road, we're at Cheesman's Fright Farm, where we get a behind-the-scenes look at what goes on.
We got to see all 50 haunters and what they do before the first hayride even begins. Right now we're standing inside our costume trailer at the haunted house. This is where we keep all of our equipment. The kids are outside getting into their costumes as we speak, getting ready for the first hayride.
I'm going to start out with this. They're latex appliques. You put them on with spirit gum, put a little liquid latex around them to try and disguise the edges, and then you put makeup on from there and make it look pretty disgusting. You can do burns. There's gelatin mix to make burns to make it look really like weepy and seeping. 18 years as a medic, I have a pretty good idea what they look like. So.
Big red light.
Yeah, I'm in the house. I'm in the butcher's bed. I get butchered all night.
Well, I'm all bundled up.
And I'm ready as I'll ever be. Let's go see how our haunters look.
We have fires burning everywhere, so people can stand around them and kind of talk about their experience, and we like to get a feedback that way, you know, without getting right in their faces. You know, we listen and hear what they have to say, and for the last few years we've had a lot of good comments.
Well, getting a behind-the-scenes tour, unfortunately, didn't make it any easier to walk through.
And you only have till October 30th to come check it out.
Well, that's it for this week's On the Road.
We'll see you next time.
Now, Liz, as you know, nothing makes a Halloween celebration better than some fresh apple cider. If you've ever wondered how the traditional beverage goes from the fruit on a tree to a drink in your cup, then you're about to find out. County Line's Elena Schuring has the scoop on how to make fresh apple cider.
Fall is here, and for some of us that means pumpkins, Halloween, and for some it means cider. I'm here at Haas's Cider Mill in Canfield, Ohio, to find out what goes into making cider.
Welcome to Haas Cider Mill. My name's Matt Haas. We've been pressing fresh cider here since about 1956, and we're still doing it today.
So how do these solid apples form into liquid cider?
Wash them, grind them, and press them into juice.
Okay, it's not that simple. The process begins by bringing an 18-bushel bin of apples, about 1,000 pounds of apples, into the cider house. They are then lifted up into a washer where they are sanitized. After being washed and checked, they ride the elevator into what's known as the chop man. The chop man begins the process of turning the apples into liquid.
The apple's actually shaved off at a very rapid rate to rupture the cells of the apple so the juice can be released.
From there, the crushed apples are sprayed into cloth-covered racks that are stacked on top of each other. The press lowers slowly onto the racks, applying about 2,000 pounds of pressure to the crushed apples. Juice falls into the press pan where it is pumped through a series of tanks. The first tank is a 400-gallon refrigerated one that contains pure juice and filters out any extra apple pieces. It then goes to a second tank where it is pasteurized. The second tank uses a live steam heat source to preheat the cider and take it up to the final pasteurizing temperature. The last tank is the final product tank that holds up to 800 gallons of fresh cider that is then shipped to you at your local market.
It's put in brand new jugs, labeled, capped, coated, dated, pushed into coolers. That's the final product.
It's hard to imagine after all that hard work, it still goes down so smoothly. From Canfield, Ohio, at Haas Cider Mill, I'm Elena Schuring.
Man, now I'm thirsty. But before you break open that jug of apple cider, there's a lot of news from this week to catch up on.
That's right. Bill Sadler will get us up to date in this week's 88.9 on the County Line.
9 FM News. First this week, Grove City High School received its 4th bomb threat in 3 weeks. The school district has changed some policies since the threats began in hopes of preventing future problems. Many threats have been found in the restroom, and now students are only allowed to use the restrooms one at a time. The issue will be addressed at the November 14th school board meeting. Next, Pennsylvania Auditor General Jack Wagner says from January 2002 to December 2003, Newcastle failed to contribute $1.6 million to pension plans for the city's police, firefighter, and ununiformed employees. Unpaid balances are added with interest to the next year's bill. City officials have not said how they plan on compensating for the outstanding obligation. State Representative Frank LaGrada is leading an effort to remove a plan from the Department of Public Welfare that will reduce funding for children in special education programs. LaGrada says the plan will reduce funding available for school districts that provide medical services to students with special education programs. If you're out celebrating this holiday weekend, make sure you have a designated driver. The Pennsylvania State Police are setting up checkpoints to keep drunk drivers off the road. This ends this week's 88.9 on the County Line. For your local news, tune into 89 FM weekdays for live updates. More County Line is next.
When Westminster students come back to school for the spring semester, they know they'll be facing a whole new schedule of classes and professors, but this January, they'll have something else to look forward to for the first time, a brand new cafeteria. County Line's Catherine Larson has the details on this campus edition.
Breath Dining Hall offer 32 flavors and then some. This spring semester, a $300,000 project could offer the eye a sweet treat.
Be featuring an exhibition station where food will be prepared right in front of you. We'll have a grill station, pizza, we'll have a made-to-order deli, and we'll have an entree station. Along with that, we'll have salad bar and deli bar.
Starting this November, Westminster's updating an old tradition.
If you mention McGinnis, unless you know that the dining hall, that small dining hall, is named for him, then you would never know who McGinnis was.
McGinnis, a 1901 graduate and well-known Pittsburgh lawyer, gave generously to the school.
Because of his loyalty and promotion of the college.
But McGinnis is going to have to compete with a well-known campus watering hole, The Tub.
So here's the most popular place on campus to get a bite to eat. But who knows if it's going to stay like that after the dining hall gets built.
Would tempt me into heading over. Anything can be better than this. Because right now I'm still a little hungry and there's just nothing to eat.
Well, if they refurnish it, that's one thing. I'm still concerned about the sewage problems they've had in the past.
If it's cheaper. But for walk-wise, I probably would. Save me a walk. I'm lazy.
Blueprints are being drawn up. The school hopes.
Well, we hope to get a little wow when they first walk in. So.
For the County Line, I'm Catherine Larson.
Over the weekend, I was able to do a little horsing around with the Westminster College Equestrian team. Take a look at the fun I had this past Sunday.
It's the Intercollegiate Horse Show here at the Little Neshannock Stables, where riders and their horses are strutting their stuff. Over a dozen other schools sent their best riders to compete in what the equestrians call jumping and flat events. Accredited judges then award points for their position on the saddle at a walk, trot, and canter. But there's a catch to this competition. Riders can't use their own horse. They're assigned one they've never ridden before. We heard from some of the riders that it can be difficult to ride a strange horse for the first time. But then we went to the stables to find out what the horses think about having a stranger on their back. They agree. Strange riders are tricky for them too. And yet another difficulty added to the day was the muddy, muddy ground. University of Pitt alum rider Lauren Holmes says the wet terrain can throw off the rider's balance.
It's a little bit, kind of like riding your bike through mud versus riding your bike on pavement. You would be more careful riding your bike in the mud than riding on the road.
For the most part, the horses can handle it, but it's hard to avoid the occasional unruly horse. One of the riders, Lauren Hessler, remembers an unruly horse from her past.
I was in 9th grade and I went into a stall to get a horse, and I grabbed him by his halter, and he turned and grabbed my arm, and I had a huge chunk out of it taken in.
At the end of the day, the horses seem to hold all the power. All the riders can do is stand back and watch, or get up on the saddle and hang on for the ride. From Lawrence County, I'm Elizabeth Barry for the County Line.
And you could feel it kind of like swells a little bit, but besides, it didn't hurt. It's just a different, inside of your arm is like kind of swelling.
That was Veronica Garretts, one of the willing blood donors at Tuesday's blood drive here at Westminster. The American Red Cross was on hand to help. Coordinators were pleasantly surprised at the turnout. Over 80 people donated throughout the 6-hour drive.
This year, Halloween activities for New Wilmington take place on Saturday with trick-or-treating from 3 to 4:30 and the parade at 5.
And we wanted to know more about what people are doing for Halloween. So for this week's County Comments, we sent Amy Sasfai out to ask some locals what they're planning.
This week, I traveled to Grove City asking local residents what they're doing this Halloween.
For Halloween this year, I'm going to be going to Ireland to do the second half of my student teaching.
What I'm doing for Halloween is what I always do, and that is I carve the pumpkins and put them out, and then I wait inside for people who come around trick-and-treating. And we always send our kids out because we think that Halloween really is a kid's holiday.
Well, we have a little one, and she still wants to go out in a costume, but she's old enough now. She wants to go with her friends. She doesn't want to go with us, so our role is to wait at home and hand out the candy to other people.
This year for Halloween, I'm taking my 3 children trick-or-treating to friends and family.
Well, it looks like people have lots of exciting plans for this Halloween. Reporting for the County Line, I'm Amy Sasfai. Back to you in the studio, Kirsten.
With Halloween just a few days away, scary ghost stories are a hot topic of conversation. Tonight, I have with me Executive Director of Lawrence County's Historical Society, Bob Presnar, to clear up some of those myths. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for inviting me back.
So, ghost stories. Are there a lot of them in Lawrence and Mercer County?
Well, it seems like this time of the year, the stories get rehashed and retold. I guess Lawrence County and Western Pennsylvania has its share of scary stories.
Now, the one that I hear most about, because some of my friends decided it was a good idea to go investigate this little myth, Mary Black.
Right.
Tell me about her.
Mary Black is probably the most well-known scary story in our area. I guess you could use the term urban legend. The story has legs of its own, and it morphs and it changes. It's been around, the story has been around for approximately 50 years. Mary Black seems to be a typical woman that lived in the 1800s. She was born in 1801, died 1888. She lived a long life. She was married to labor on the canals in the Moravia area just south of Newcastle. She and her family lived in Taylor Township. They had a very large family. Seems to be just an average, typical 19th century family. They had 3 children, 3 boys that were in the Civil War. Actually, one was captured in battle and died in a prison camp. It just seems like a normal family for that time period. However, after her death, the name became synonymous with witchcraft and scary stories.
Yeah, we had heard that she was a witch.
Right. These stories happened, were developed in the 1950s sometime. And there was a gentleman that lived out there. His name was Harry Stein. People called him Harry the Hermit because he lived in a rural area pretty much to himself. But I've seen some of Harry's writings, and he was a very good fiction writer. A folklorist, if you will, and he used the names that were associated with Mary Black's family cemetery, which is called the Tyndall Cemetery, and you'll find it in Taylor Township. And he used those names with his stories, and they morphed. It was a story about witches and black cats, and it changed to all kinds of different things. So we were talking earlier, some people think that the people's watches will stop if they go out to the area. And now when I was a young person, the story was that if you went into a dark room and looked into a mirror, and said her name 3 times, she would scratch you in the face.
Oh, I thought that was the Bloody Mary one.
Well, sure. Yeah. And I'm sure that these stories are adapted from other stories as well. The Blair Witch Project of a few years ago got Mary Black's story all riled up again in people's minds, and people started to go out to the cemetery again. But
so when people are going to the cemetery, are they going to find anything?
Well, and here's the sad part of Mary Black's story. And I guess any urban legend, any myth like this could have a dark outcome to it. It became such a popular hangout for young people. It became a party area. And the cemetery got desecrated. And in fact, they moved Mary Black's tombstone around so much that we became the caretakers. We, the Lawrence County Historical Society, became the caretakers. So we have it, and it's in storage, and it won't get damaged, and it'll be around for a very long time. But that was only necessary because the people had damaged the cemetery. And that's really the sad outcome of a story like that, once it gets to this point, you don't know what will happen.
So if somebody wants a really good scare for this Halloween, what would you recommend?
It's pretty scary out there, especially if you're not sure where you're going. The woods of western Pennsylvania, take your pick. I don't encourage anybody to do that, of course, but certainly that's kind of a scary
Well, thank
place.
you very much for being here tonight. Stay tuned for more County Line after the break.
There's a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
The Lawrence County Humane Society believes in the safety of spaying and neutering your animals. Spaying and neutering can have many long-term benefits.
We at the Lawrence County Humane Society believe that all animals should be spayed or neutered. Many reasons why, but the biggest reason is that they will be a happier, healthier pet. Also, it alleviates the overpopulation problem.
Getting your animals spayed and neutered is one huge step in making sure that more animals are healthy and find loving homes.
I'm the best thing you ever had. Only thing I'm guilty of is giving you too much love, making you crazy, making you go right, making me follow me, making me suspect. Seem to think I'm playing her game. Don't you know the her? This is me.
There's a better way to have fun with history. Visit americaslibrary.gov. Log on, play around, learn something.
Hello and welcome to Tiny Town Sports. I'm Justin Egley. Thanks for tuning in as we have a busy show for you tonight. We're going to start off with the media day that was on Wednesday, the PAC Media Day. All the head coaches for the basketball teams got to go down and give a little preview of their teams. Let's see what Coach Ondako and Coach Gaw had to say about theirs.
Because I've got 13 of my 16 players are freshmen or sophomores, we're going to be young. But I'm excited about them. I think we've got a good group. I'm excited about our program and the stability of it. We've won, since our 2-8 start 2 years ago, we've gone 28 and 16, which is pretty respectable. So we're excited about where we are. We've got a good group of young kids, and certainly Bethany's the team to beat, and we're just hoping we can creep up there and get back in it like we did 2 years ago. So
when you lose 3 starters who combined averaging 45% of our points, 50% of our rebounds, so far this year has been very challenging. I'm looking for some of our core underclassmen who had good years last year to step up and try to fill those roles for us. But so far, the big challenge for us this year has been injury. So far, we have been practicing with 9 to 10 people.
Now to high school football. Now, Laura did get the wild card for the Tri-County North, so they will be making the playoffs. They're going to go up and play South Park on Friday at 7:30. You can listen to that on 1280 Just Oldies AM. And I'll have the call along with my partner, Rob Godak. And so going from high school, we're going to go into a different sport as DJ Oakley has the how-to, and this week he has table tennis.
Hey, what's up? What's happening? I'm DJ, and for this week's how-to, I'm here with Katie Huber, star player on the Westminster ladies tennis team. But since tennis is over and it's really crappy outside, this week we're going to be doing a little table tennis. She steps into my court. Katie, you ready for this?
I'm pumped. I'm ready.
All right.
Let's do it.
I hope so, because we're doing it right now.
For a forehand, you're going to hold your racket. You're going to go down. You're going to come up, start down low, and swing up and follow through and come all the way up. Backhand, it's going to be a little different thing. Normally, I do two hands, right over left, start down on the bottom, come up, turn your wrist, and snap through. But for serving, you have a continental grip, so you turn it more to the side. You start down by your foot, go up, follow through, and down, and down. Let's do that again. Ready?
Ready for this. Here it comes.
Oh, out.
Woo! That was out.
I'm on my second drink.
Final score today was 6-1, 6-2 in favor of the tennis star. But, you know, maybe next time.
Next time.
For Titan Sports, Katie Huber, I'm DJ Oakley. Back to you in the studio, Justin.
Hey, thanks, DJ. And last but not least, we have the eggs of the week. And so let's take a look at the best plays of the week now.
On both corners.
Three-step drop, they do to the quick pass, and Matt Handhold knocks it down. As we mentioned, Westminster will go for it 4th and 9 here. Satterfield to throw, passes tipped and picked off by Greg Pfeiffer. And Pfeiffer with return up to the 18. 3rd and 10 from the 42, Barley straight drop back. Doesn't see anything, he's flushed from the pocket, now looking to throw, completes that pass. Jordan Bellish in a big gain. Left-hand side, inside the 30 to the 20. Received the kick for the Titans at his own 25-yard line, a high snap. Football picked off by Tanner Larson, a flag on the...
They make everything look like you're going that way. He had no intention of throwing it to the right. And it was just a fly pattern by the wide receiver. One-on-one, there's no deep help. And consequently, Reggie Williams is all by himself out there. And they've taken advantage of it again.
Green, that's Zach Anderson. Wanted to throw the slant to Anderson. To Colavecchia heaves up a pass. It's picked off by Kevin Maddox. And Maddox with a very nice return up all the way near midfield. To be exact. Wants to throw short left-hand side and does. A big completion to Weisenstein. He's going to go all the way for a touchdown. 55 yards. Corey Collins to Bradley Weisenstein.
That concludes this week's edition of Titantown Sports. I'm Justin Egley. Now it's back over to the anchor desk.
Thanks, Justin. That concludes our edition of the County Line this week.
Thank you, Justin, and thank you, DJ as well. We leave you now with some video from Westminster's Geek Week.